Welcome to Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. I am your host, Shafayat Mohammed, and with me in the studio today is a very prominent person here, very prominent personality of South Florida, has a background from New York, Bronx particularly, and he is Reverend Thomas Graf. Welcome to the show, Reverend.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is our pleasure and honor to have you with us also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Well, you know, looking at your background, you seem to be a man of some real interesting diversity, a background of great diversity. Would you like to share that with us? I know you are a professor at BCC College. For our international viewers throughout the world. BCC is Broward Community College. You're a priest. You are involved with hospice. You have so many different things. Could you tell us a little bit about your life and how you began and what's... And I'll interject here and there to find out what's going on in details.
Well, thank you so much again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a blessing to be involved with you. I mean, we've had our association since '97.
Wow.
When we moved down here from, from Dobbs Ferry, New York, but I'm originally from the Bronx. The only borough in New York that has "the" in front of it. So it's the Bronx.
The Bronx.
The Bronx.
Oh, you're kidding?
Oh, yeah.
That's what they call the Bronx?
You don't say the Manhattan or the Queens or the, you know.
So why did they give it that title?
My understanding is that it comes from early on when Manhattan was the original, settlement area, and it was farmland, and there was a wealthy family called the Bronxes, who actually lived in the area now called the Bronx. They had a mansion, and people would go on vacation to visit the Bronxes. So the actual name with the preposition there stood, the Bronxes. So the Bronx.
I'm sure a lot of people who live in the Bronx
don't even know it.
They don't know that, right?
No.
But that's nice. There are a lot of people, viewers from all over the world who visit the Bronx and New York would love to know that.
Oh, yeah.
That the name was given because of a family called the Bronx.
The Bronxes, a wealthy family.
Interesting.
Yep.
So how did you enjoy the Bronx?
I love the Bronx. I grew up by Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium, another... Why did they give the name Yankee?
Well, it has to do with the Northerners, the Yanks. The Yankee Stadium itself is in, like I said, in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. And my apartment building, actually, when I first, the first place we lived in when I was young, from the roof, we could watch the games of the Yankees.
In the Caribbean, well, I don't know how people think about it in America, but in the Caribbean, when a person used an obscene language, they would say he used a Yankee language.
Is that right?
Yeah. Did you know of that?
I had never heard that, no.
Yeah, when someone, if they would use an obscene language or they would curse someone, they say, oh, he used a Yankee on me.
He used a Yankee on me?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, maybe because of some negative connotations they had of people that came from, the understanding of the Yankee, which was...
Well, maybe it was, it's like an obscene language as people would do in the movies or whatever, so they gave it that.
Well, it also I think had to do with because again, negatively connotation with Yankees is you'll hear Yankees go home, you know, and gringo, you know, from that also came the gringo.
The gringo, that's another terminology I always hear, but he is a real gringo.
Gringo.
And where did they develop that terminology
That also
from?
came from the understanding of, you know, people from the United States occupying areas, and they wore the green uniforms. So it was
So it was
green
really supposed
go.
to be gringo.
Green go home. Green go home.
And the name came around gringo.
Gringo.
Because people give that terminology to a guy who has, you know, travel around,
Right.
mess around, you
uh-huh.
know, he has been here and there and did all the A to Z good and bad things. And he will say, listen, he will come to you and say, listen, don't give me that kind of thing. I'm an old gringo.
I'm an old gringo. See
Yeah.
that?
Or father will tell his son, what new thing are you telling me? I'm a gringo. I know what you're trying to tell me. I've been there, done that.
Oh, that's interesting. That has a different connotation, probably a different history too.
In the Caribbean.
Sure.
Well, I wonder, I mean, especially Trinidad, where I was born, I think it probably came about the early set of people from Trinidad who went to New York and got into this American style and the American life, and that's how they linked on to the Yankee and probably came across the gringo
Right.
and the gringo language. So when a guy gets back to the Caribbean, it's like, I've been there, done that, seen that.
Okay. And they're probably viewed differently from those that didn't have a chance to get to the States, correct? Would they be seen in a negative connotation by others?
Not necessarily
in
negative.
Trinidad?
They seem to be someone who has been there, done that.
Okay.
Not necessarily, not negative, not at all negative. But, you know, well, sometimes it carries, you know, there used to be a movie called Love American Style. It was all about this flash modern day.
Right.
Well, you know, in some of the islands and in other countries, when you speak about America, you speak about where people all got the rights to do everything. You know, this is where people could dress with a bikini, go on the beach, nude style. You got all the liberty that you want. So it's not necessarily negative, but it's a country of freedom where people do everything.
Right.
Been there, done that. It's a fine line,
Yeah,
but
it could be. And because I know I spent some time in the Dominican Republic where I went to study Spanish. And there's a group that would come from Dominican Republic to New York and may return back. And they were given the name Dominican Yorks. Dominican Yorks. And they would return with gold, and they would return with some money, they would return with some experience. And like you said, you know, some people would look up to them as something that they may want to be part of.
Yes.
But others would also see it as something that they've been maybe also a little bit
materialistic.
Correct.
Been there, done that in the kind of freedom life.
So it has, you know, some negative connotation to it also.
Well, that's what they do. They promote it. In one way, the people who are looking at things want to do that.
Right.
And the other people is like, well, this girl went to New York. She dressed properly when she came back. She came back to Trinidad in mini, or her accent change and her style change. And you get what I'm saying? And
Sure.
that's where they got this gringo Yankee sort of thing.
Sure enough. And then, I mean, you and I well know from you know, your background and your, you know, speaking in different forums, and through my experience, you know, working as a professor in world religion for a number of years now, there are different you know, experiences that people have of different cultures, of different areas.
Yes.
And some of it that gets distorted.
Of course. I mean, and that's why we talk, and that's why we're
Amen.
on this show.
Amen.
You know, what you call establishing
Sure
tolerance
enough.
and better understanding among different faiths and
Correct.
cultures.
Correct.
And that's what I'm asking you, because, you know, I am learning. I have never known about this gringo thing.
Sure.
Interesting.
It is.
Interesting. So, Reverend Thomas, well, would you like to share with our audience a little bit of your,
Sure enough.
what I say, your Yankee,
All right.
gringo,
Well,
the Bronx background?
I'm a gringo from the Bronx.
Right. To being a priest today and a professor at a very prominent college here in South Florida, would you like to share on how you developed to this sort of
Sure.
achievement in life?
Well, I think there's only one thing I can look to, and that's our God.
Yes.
You know, and that God has many names.
We thank God for the favors and bounties He has blessed you with. Praise the Lord.
Amen. Amen. Early on, I think there were just influences in my life that showed me what was most important. I give thanks and praise to God for growing up in the Bronx. I mean, in a one-bedroom apartment with 5 people in the South Bronx. You know, going through some struggles, as you know, was part of life, and you know, but it really gave me a tremendous, I think, understanding of what's most important in life, and that's faith and good people around you. Other things are needed, there's no doubt, as we move forward. But there was always something inside of me, I think, because of people that I cherished, especially I can look to early on, because my background also was Roman Catholic, and that still is my roots. And it was a nun and a priest, I think, that gave me tremendous understanding of the importance of faith. Not to mention my mom, God bless her soul, and my dad, both who are with our Lord at this time as we gather, who tremendously influenced me.
So your mom was very religiously involved, and your dad?
Dad was dad. Dad had some issues, God bless him. One of them was alcohol, and that's something I clearly, I thank God that I've had some background and understanding of the disease that it is, and that influenced me too in a very ultimately positive way. Dad struggled, and he struggled even up until time of death, God bless him. And that's something that many different peoples in many different areas struggle with, unfortunately. He was actually originally, and that's where, again, born Roman Catholic myself, raised Roman Catholic. My dad was originally Episcopalian, and then converted to the Roman Catholic Church in the Navy. And as time would go on with myself, that's part of my background, is that I am now Episcopal priest. But early on, Roman Catholic, raised in the Bronx. At an early age, thought of becoming a priest and went to a high school for young men thinking to do that. Went to a college for young men thinking to be Roman Catholic priest. Met a girl, and then I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a Roman Catholic priest anymore.
I like that. I like that. You need to share that with us. But tell me, where did you take your degree in becoming a priest?
Well, I eventually went and became, as there are Jesuits and Franciscans, religious communities within the Roman Catholic Church. I joined a group called the Passionists. They're filled with passion. But the name itself comes from the founder, St. Paul of the Cross, who had a tremendous devotion to the suffering and the passion of Jesus. That was something that was a big part of...
And where were they located in America?
They're located throughout the world, and in the United States, they're in the West Coast and the East Coast, and I was part of the Western Coast.
Good.
And I ended up studying, though, we had a joint seminary in Chicago. So I went to Catholic Theological Union, which was a union of different seminaries, in terms of other denominations as well. So I think in terms of ecumenism, that began there for me. So I studied, actually, for example, I studied my church course, which is a foundational course in the seminary. I studied my church course at a Lutheran seminary taught by a Methodist.
Wow.
And I was Roman Catholic.
Is it true that and I need to come back on that priest and getting married thing. We need to talk about that. That's interesting. Because, once I mentioned to somebody in the, and I know they were correct, but I mentioned to somebody who was not a Muslim in some interfaith program I went to, and they were like, what do you do? Who are you? And what is your religious title? And I was trying to tell them whatever. They couldn't understand. So I said, well, I'm like a priest in your religion.
Right.
So the person said, so does it mean you're not married? You have never married? I'm like, oh, don't even tell me that.
That's right.
Everyone has this different perspective of priests, but we're going to get to that. You were making a little point a little while ago on the meeting of a girl while you were studying. So how did that come about with you being a priest and yet being married? What's the difference? Well, you know what? We just got a couple seconds to end this first segment of the show. I think it was really interesting. I learned a lot.
All right.
I really learned about the gringo thing and the Yankee thing. And I think that's very, very motivating to our audience to know you came from the Bronx, you came from that territory, and today the professor, the priest, and that public and well-known personality you have, that's very, very motivating for our viewers and our audience out there. And when we come back, I would like to share with our viewers a little bit on that, the difference with being a priest married or priest not married, and some of the commonalities between Islam and your faith, and what you understand, how we understand each other. And I also know that you're a man who has taught so many different classes at BCC College and came across so many people of different professional background, because you teach adults, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So it would be nice to know what they think about you teaching world religion and Jews and Christians and Muslims and Islam, etc. So when we get back, Professor, we want to touch on some of those interesting topics and issues so that our viewers out there will have a better perspective of understanding and tolerance and different faiths and cultures, and you're a man in that field of knowledge and experience. All right? So friends and viewers, you have been viewing Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. I'm your host, Shafayat Mohammed, and with me in the studio today is Reverend Thomas Graf. When we come back, we will continue this very interesting discussion with our honorable priest and guest in Al-Hikmat TV here today. Thank you very much.
Subhanallah.
Tune in to Who's Who in America and in your community, hosted by Sister Naima Khan Ghani, with extraordinary guests every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. on www.alhikmatlive.com.
Walla ilaha illallah. Walla ilaha illallah. Wallahu akbar. Wallahu akbar.
Tune in for Friday Khutbah at 1:30 p.m. broadcasting live from Darul Uloom Institute, Pembroke Pines, Florida, on Al-Hikmat TV online.
Jashne Ahmad Rasool. Allahi Allah.
Tuning to Young Muslim Talent in America, hosted by Salma Muhammad, with talented kids from all over America, every Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. on www.alhikmatlive.com.
Allahi Allah. Oh, Jashne Ahmad Rasool. Allahi Allah.
Thinking of doing Sadaqah Jariyah for your near and dear ones? We recommend you to sponsor the Origin of True Islam brochure, the Genealogy of Prophets, or the Surahs and Zikr to be recited daily as Sadaqah Jariyah for your parents who have passed away. Or you could sponsor one of the items for yourself, fi sabilillah. For more details, contact the Al-Hikmat office at 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158, or email us at alhikmat@alhikmat.com.
Welcome back to Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. And again, I'm your host, Shafayat Mohammed, and with me in the studio, we have our very honorable guest, Professor Thomas Graf.
Thank you.
Again, welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
You know, we ended on a very interesting note, and you were mentioning something about Methodist and Episcopal priests or learnings and teachings and Roman Catholic and Lutheran. Could you share that point again?
Well, what I was sharing was I'm very grateful for the education that I had, in particular at this place called Catholic Theological Union, which was in Chicago, in that it was a union of different seminarians from different Roman Catholic areas throughout the country, but also it was a union of different religions that were studying together as well. So that, one of the things I mentioned was that one of my courses was taken at a Lutheran seminary taught by a Methodist. We also had a rabbi on our staff. I'm also grateful that, for example, I not only, got my degree or master's in divinity, but I had a specialization in what they call cross-cultural communication. So that that included my going to Dominican Republic to study, but it also included having study of different cultures, and the importance of that in terms of coming together and to be able to communicate together, because we're a global community.
And with that cross-community cultural background, people like you, we need to be on television more often, because I think too many times you have people caught up in this one-track mind. I mean, yes, you believe in what you believe,
sure,
but yes, we are people of different cultures and faiths, and I think more Christians and Jews and Muslims and everybody out there need to know how to tolerate one another and how to work together. Don't you think so?
Well, I think it's essential. If there's one thing I've seen in my 15 plus years of also teaching at Broward College. It was Broward College, plus in New York I taught at Bronx Community College and at Mercy College. In Jacksonville, I was there for a couple of years and I taught at their community college.
Wow.
One of the things that I've noticed in that teaching of world religion or intro to religion is that I'll get people from such a diversity, such a background.
Right.
I mean, one of the first things I do in my class every semester is I go around and ask people to say who they are, where they're from. And for example, here in South Florida, you'll have a global community in a class of 30 some odd students from everywhere throughout the world. You'll also find people from different religions and backgrounds. I mean, certainly because of the geographical area where we're teaching, a large majority of them would have Christian denomination. But one of the things that I find is that what happens from the beginning of the class to the end of the class.
And do the students have a problem in learning about Judaism or Christianity or Islam or whatever?
I don't think they have a problem, but I think they're very surprised as the semester unfolds, because some of them come in with a background and a mentality that theirs is the correct one, perhaps, that theirs is the main one, or even in today's society now, we'll get some people coming into class that don't have any association.
And what about those students who, I mean, do you have atheists doing world religion?
Oh, sure.
But why would they study world religion when they don't believe in God?
Well, part of it is it's a requirement, perhaps, that they have to take one of these courses, either in terms of philosophy or psychology or religion. But what we're finding is that our religion courses are filling more and more.
How do they react in a class when a rabbi or priest, or when I happen to be doing most of your Islamic Muslim classes, right?
Right.
How do they react to that?
Well, I think one of the things that they love about it is that it's open to dialogue, and that no one person has all of the answers, and that we have to respect. I mean, one of the things that I mentioned, as you're well aware, I mean, my class has been coming to your mosque since 1997.
Yes.
I try to get my classes to go to at least 3 trips during the semester. So usually I take them to a Hindu temple, I take them to a Jewish temple. One of our colleagues that
Rabbi
we do that with,
Rabbi
Frazen, and to your mosque. Quite often those are the places. And one of the things that clearly gets understood, and it's one of my objectives for the course, is that they know they're not going to have a full understanding of all religions by the end of the course. But one of my main goals is that they leave with respect for or understanding of people of different religions and backgrounds and cultures.
That I know, but and I know it's a requirement, so they got to do it. But on the side, do you see any kind of negativity? I mean, like a Christian student having a problem with a rabbi telling them about Judaism, or a Jewish or Christian student have a problem with me as a Muslim telling them about Islam? I would just like to know, because if we know some of the areas, we will know, and our viewers out there will have a better idea. Listen, these are areas that people don't understand, so we need to address the situation maybe in a different way.
Right. What I've found in the years teaching is that they may have problems prior to going to a temple. They may have problems prior to going to your mosque. They may have problems during the course itself when just getting into information in general. But what I found is when they actually get out to the temple, when they actually get out to the mosque, when they hear you present, you who are from Trinidad, you who were Christian, you who have respect for other religions, you who are not a terrorist, because that's one of the major problems I think comes from media. And from lack of information and distorted information that's out there about certain religions as well.
And they think that all Muslims hate Jews and Christians, all Muslims hate America, and we all have a terrorist mentality.
Correct. And it's not until they actually can get to be with, to question, and to see the reality of what is out there.
So do you get remarks like that they were surprised that it's not the the Islam that they misunderstood on the media?
Correct. Oh yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah. And even facts, that the Quran, speaks of the people of the book, has tremendous respect for Jesus as prophet, has tremendous respect for the Virgin Mary. All those things that that people would have not even expected prior.
So you're seeing a lot of these students have no clue that the Quran speaks of Jesus and Moses and Mary, peace be upon them.
At all.
Wow.
Many of them that come in the beginning would not. Of course not. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, then that means that Muslims need to do more work.
Oh.
They need to tell the world and, let the world know more about what the Quran says and the commonalities between the message of Moses and Jesus and Muhammad, peace be upon them all.
Amen. No, I believe that's right. Indeed,
that's interesting.
Indeed,
that's really interesting. And maybe that's the reason why. What do you think, Reverend? Do you think that's one of the reasons why you have this negative thing against Muslims by some people?
Oh, I believe so. I believe so. I think that. And it wouldn't be just against Muslims. Certainly we're,
Yeah, right now, speaking of Muslims,
now, yeah. That is for sure. But I think that's also why it comes up in other religions as well. It's ignorance.
But what do you suggest to Muslim leaders and clerics and Muslim organizations? What, as a priest and a man who has went through different backgrounds and different cultures, what do you suggest, because again, I want to reiterate, our viewers are from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Arabia, all over the world. We got viewers on Al-Hikmat TV, right? Russia, all over Spain, etc., Caribbean. What would you recommend to Muslims as to what they need to do a little more or what they're not doing to give a better perspective or to clear the misunderstanding in the minds of Christians and Jews?
Well, we're doing here right now. What you do, what you've done.
Oh, thank you.
I agree. The publication you put out, Al-Hikmat. I read through that regularly. You have, different clergy people. You have rabbis, that are giving input.
And I would really like to get you as a columnist in that magazine.
Oh, I would love to do that.
Because we got a rabbi, and I'd love to have you as a priest.
Sure. No,
maybe I commit you on air right now.
Well,
it's going to be so nice because you have cultural background.
Right. Well, it would be an honor to assist you with that. I think that's essential. We need to have more forums where people come together, because see, it doesn't happen just in the study. It doesn't happen in the books. It has to happen people coming together, working hand in hand together.
The real thing. Here you see a rabbi and a priest writing an article. On commonalities, areas of understanding.
Sure.
Whatever. Yeah, I think that will be what a powerful message to the younger people.
Indeed.
And the people whose minds are corrupted.
No, I think that's excellent. That has to happen. It has to happen by, more people. Again, I'll say, because my connection is with you here in South Florida. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
I have other imams that I know elsewhere as well. I knew one very, very, very wonderful one in that I got to know in Jacksonville as well. But the bottom line is that it's through the involvements that you've had. I know that you've worked with the sheriff's office. I know that you've worked with interfaith groups here in South Florida. It's through those involvements that a person gets out and people can see, well, this is not a terrorist. This is not someone who's putting out anti-Jewish or anti-Christian or anti-whatever understandings. It's someone who certainly has a tremendous devotion to their faith. And I think people respect that. I think, one of the things I've gotten to see as time has gone on is people respect people who have devotion to their faith and follow it. In Hinduism, for example, they say that everyone is Hindu if they follow in truth all of their, if they follow truth, if they go along a path and live it 100%. And I think that's one of the things that people respect, is that if they can see a leader within their tradition that's following it and moving forward, and in that comes a respect for and an understanding of people of different faiths. There are going to be differences, but I think we have more similarities than we have differences.
And do you know, really and truly, people learn a lot more. In my previous, or in fact, one of my previous interview here at Al-Hikmat TV with Rabbi Jeffrey, we were discussing the topic of the hijab, the Muslim hijab that women wear, and the the explanation he gave on one line of Orthodox Jews was that certain Orthodox Jews, the women must cover their hair after they get married, and they're supposed to cover it from any strange man.
Right.
And that's the whole purpose of the hijab in Islam. And I was like, wow. And yet you have people who look at Muslim women covered like a nun,
Right.
and think they're oppressed or they're, you know, persecuted by the men. Such a misunderstanding.
Correct.
When we have the same understanding, the nuns cover their head and dress like a Muslim woman.
Sure.
Orthodox Jews dress like a Muslim woman. And yet the world out there thinks that Muslim women are some other kind of cult and some different kind of practice. I mean,
Right, and they see it as
it's
some
all
sort
lack
of
of
oppression. But even in the Roman Catholic tradition for years, not only was there the nuns that wore the habits and the head covering, but there was a rule within the Roman Catholic Church that women who entered the church had to cover their head.
or every woman.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Whether they wore it on a daily basis or not.
Correct.
Whether they were a nun or not.
and just like as you walk into a temple, the men have the yarmulkes, and there's a box there for that. There used to be in Roman Catholic churches
Interesting.
something that would be worn as a head covering for the woman.
So as long as you go into the church, whether you dress like that on a daily basis or
Correct.
not, you go to church, you need to cover your head.
And that stopped,
That is
I mean,
superb.
since the 60s and Vatican II. But yes, that was something.
But we all have the same
Oh,
area
yeah,
of common
the background. Sure, sure.
Tell me a little bit about the difference between a Roman Catholic and Lutheran and Methodist and Episcopal.
Oh, Lord.
I know that's a long
we
thing,
have
but just a basic, just some of the
Well,
major little differences.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, certainly one of the major, beginnings towards divisions, if you will, different denominations that began, happened during the Reformation. And that's where Martin Luther, certainly, who was a Roman Catholic priest, it wasn't his desire initially to separate from the Roman Catholic Church, but he saw some need for reform. I mean, we'll see in all religions that there is need for reform as time unfolds.
Okay.
So he was a major reformer. What happened actually, was, and people would see it, was that it was more political. Some political pieces enter in, and that led to some more divisions, but needed to be. So that, for example, with the amount of time that we have, I'm former Roman Catholic and former Roman Catholic priest, now with the Episcopal Church.
And what's the difference, Episcopal
Well,
and
with the Episcopal Church and the Roman Catholic would be very similar. I mean, and one of the things that happened after the Reformation was that in England, because the Episcopal Church is part of the Church of England, the Anglican tradition. And in England, during the initial division with Rome, it went back and forth for many years, depending on the rule in England. For a while it was Roman Catholic, then for a while it was Protestant. It went back and forth, back and forth. Some of the major differences between the Episcopal Church and the Roman Catholic Church, one of the things is that if you go into either of those churches on a Sunday or whenever you go for service, pretty much it's the same service.
But what about beliefs?
Well,
differ
they wouldn't have affinity to and rule by Rome. So in other words, they don't have a pope. It's more democratic in its understanding. It's actually from the Episcopal Church. If you study it correctly, during the time of the American Revolution, that's when the Episcopal Church got started in the United States. And the Constitution and the format within our American political system is kind of copied from the Episcopal Church.
Oh, wow. So it has
in terms
more
of
that kind of freedom.
A democracy.
Democracy.
They allow their priests to marry. They allow women priests. And here in the United States, our Episcopal Church also allows homosexual priests and also homosexuals within the church.
And that's a heavy topic.
Oh, yes.
But tell me, as you went into marriage, so the difference with a priest getting married and some priests not getting married, who allows what?
Well, again, within the Episcopal Church,
There's
no question priests can be married.
And the Roman Catholic
Church? In the Roman Catholic Church, presently, the rule is that, if you are ordained in the Roman Catholic Church, you cannot be married.
Okay.
However, there are quite a number of married Roman Catholic priests legally, and that is because Pope John Paul II, prior to his death, during his pontificate, opened the doors for priests who
get
were married
Oh.
in other traditions to join the Roman Catholic Church.
Which means that if you're a married man and you want to become a priest, you could.
If you were not Roman Catholic.
If you were not Roman Catholic.
So in other words, if you were an Episcopalian priest and you were married, Anglican priest, you were married,
and you want to become a
Roman Catholic, you want to
priest,
switch to the Roman Catholic Church, they would allow you to join, and they
still-
do allow you to join.
and still be married.
Still be married, but if during your lifetime your wife dies,
You cannot remarry.
you cannot remarry.
And if you're a Roman Catholic priest from origin, then you cannot marry.
Correct.
Interesting, interesting. That's very slick.
Unless you join the Episcopal Church.
Unless you join the Episcopal Church. Wow. I think that's fantastic. Well, we got a point, I mean, about, and you fall under the Episcopal Church.
Correct.
So therefore, you could be a priest. So therefore, you would have a priest who got a wife.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that a priest or the title priest means someone who cannot marry.
No. And
Now, that's a misunderstanding.
oh, it
there.
is. And for the first more than half of the life of the Roman Catholic Church, popes, bishops, and priests married.
Interesting.
The first 39 popes were married in the Roman Catholic tradition.
Listen, we have earned and gained a wealth of knowledge from you today.
Well, thank
Listen, being a gringo and a man, a Yankee,
Yeah.
to a priest, that says a lot. We need to get you back on this show.
And I was a cab driver.
And you were a cab driver
I learned more about God driving a cab than any book I read, I think.
in New York. So
Yes.
you probably know every corner of New York. Well, you know, to the Caribbean people, that's a true gringo.
All right.
Being a cab driver to a priest, you do everything.
All right.
Anyhow, Reverend, it was really a pleasure to have you with us. We got a couple of seconds to wind down to close this show today here. But would you like to share anything? And what would you like to share with our audience for a few seconds in your closing remarks?
I just think that we need to be open to all people. We need to learn from all people. If we go back in our roots, we see that we all come from the same roots. There's different divisions that have occurred. I mean, even within our, my understanding for me as a Christian, well, my roots go back to Abraham. Your roots go back to Abraham.
Of course.
It doesn't matter whether it was Isaac or Ishmael, but certainly we have, a lineage that comes from that. And because of where we've grown up, I'm different, I think, a little bit because I grew up in the South Bronx. I'm different because I moved, here to South Florida. I'm different because I've come to know you and had a tremendous understanding of Islam that I would have never had myself, even as professor. We need to be open to people, and that's what it's all about.
Well, thank you very much again. It was really, really a pleasure to have you with us.
And blessings to you.
And to our viewers out there, we want to really thank you for viewing this program, Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. I'm your host, Shafayat Mohammed, and with me in the studio today, we had Professor Reverend Thomas Graf, a man with a wealth of experience and knowledge. And we really, really thank him for being with us. And we thank you for viewing the show. And feel free to tune in, same time, same station, inshallah, for Interfaith Views and Issues. Assalamu alaikum.